This is James Lupton, delighted to be joined with Franklin Ignatius. Franklin, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a long time.
That's it. It's been a while. It's been a while. It's good to get you back on the channel. Thanks for coming back on. Listen, it's been almost a year to the day since you last fought. 15th, or what I say today, a month and a couple of days away. 15th of July last year, you fought Steve Robinson, and a big platform, a big win for yourself. You was in the away corner, the underdog. Why so long out of the ring?
Yeah, nah. So literally I basically just got into an injury. I unfortunately broke my wrist. So that took me some time out, and I've got back into boxing properly from beginning of the year and had some great sparring, and I've been working my way back. So I've had a few people. I was actually supposed to fight a lot earlier this year, but I had a few people turn me down, and this was the opportunity that just presented itself, and we took it.
How frustrating is that to get the injury and then get a few people refuse to fight you when you're trying to build this momentum? You've gone in as your in the away fighter, a few fights now on big platforms, Channel 5, on Sky Sports, and you're coming away with the wins. One was a draw, but it was a win, let's be fair.
Mm.
You come up with these wins, you're now probably seen as a very high risk, low reward fighter for these,
Mm.
domestic heavyweights.
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus because there was quite a few people that turned me. I think turned out to be on like five. I don't need the name and shame, but it was quite a few, which surprised me. Uh, in the end, I can't control other people's decisions. You know what I mean? How they move and whatever is them. So my job is to prepare and get ready. And it was frustrating, but thank God I had a good team around me, and I was in a good situation. So I was just in a position where I could stay ready up until now.
Talk to me a little bit about dealing with the injury. How was that overcome? Not be able to train properly. Something you've done for a long, long time, and all of a sudden you got to come to a standstill almost.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was difficult because the first few months it was like I was essentially at the gym for the first time in a long time. And it was like I had to cast on for quite some time, like 2 months, something like that. But then my trainer, Brian Lawrence, just encouraged me, come back to the gym, got me training again. So even though I was still in a recovery period, I basically got shadow boxing, got working again. So I never lost too much fitness in that way. So by the time the New Year's came around, I was actually physically in quite decent shape, So I didn't think the healing process would be as long as it was, but everything happens for a reason, man. So I can't complain. You know what I mean?
You say that you almost sound surprised that you're still in good shape. You're always in good shape, Franco.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's like honestly, when you haven't been fighting for a while, you assume that you're gonna lose a step. And obviously, because you're at the game, it's like our contenders, our sparring partners, they're cracking on. While I was out, people had fights here and there, little good sparring here and there. So I came back to the game in the beginning of the year, and I thought to myself, even when I got back to my own sparring, I thought, oh, fucking hell, I wonder what's going to happen now, you know? And honestly, I was surprised to just be right back in like nothing happened. That surprised me. But obviously, I'm very grateful, and it's testament to the fact that I was preparing even while I was injured. So as soon as I healed up, I was literally right back to doing 8 rounds of Joyce and just cracked on straight away.
Was you worried about going down to a 4-pack rather than a 6-pack or something like that?
That never happened, funnily enough. That never happened, man. That never happened. Because I wanted to heal up as quickly as I could. So I actually ate super clean, like cut out all the sugars, all the rest of it. Because I just wanted to get back quicker. I wanted to kind of expedite the healing process. So yeah, man, I was just eating super clean. So funnily enough, I never lost my physical condition in that way.
Talk to me about that mentality to still eat clean, still try and do what you can in the gym. You mentioned shadow boxing, etc., and keep that daily routine of going to the gym and being around the people that you're around.
It's honestly, I think it was very good actually. Like, everyone talks about like mental health and stuff like that. And for me, it was just such a shock to be in a situation where where I was so out of my routine. Do you know what I mean? And then when I was in a place to be able to kind of train with the some form of routine every day, I know I'm waking up, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That routine alone went a long way towards kind of having me in a much better place because Like I live with my brother, my younger brother, and I was a miserable guy to live with, man. When I was at the gym, I was miserable to live with. You know what I mean? He's always complaining. You know what I mean? But just getting back in that routine, I think it went a long way. You know, it went a very long way. So now I think just having that routine, even if I didn't have a fight coming on, in my head, I was always hoping that a fight would be in the works sooner rather than later. You know, so I had like a goal in mind, even if it wasn't reality straight away. So I was always working with the goal that I'm gonna fight soon. I'm gonna fight soon. So I just kept that. I used that as almost like an impetus to keep the momentum going. So yeah, that's what got me through it.
And you are fighting soon. We've now got a fight date locked in the 21st. York Hall in
Yeah,
London, local to yourself.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long while in
See,
Boston, London, a good while.
I mean, I mentioned earlier, you've been an away fighter, so you've been traveling here, then everywhere. I think the Robinson fight was up Newcastle way.
Yeah,
The Westman shows would have been somewhere in Midlands, I believe.
yeah. They were all Midlands last 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what's it like to fight back at home again?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's almost feels like a homecoming, and I feel like it's the right start to kind of get that momentum going again. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like a good win next week just sets me up for a lot of good things happening later in the year. I think there's, domestically, there's a lot of good heavyweight fights happening right now. And I definitely see myself being back in that mix sooner rather than later.
Before I come on to that domestic heavyweight scene,
Mm.
York Hall, you mentioned there, your pro debut was there.
Yeah, yeah. It's an old place, old home.
I
Yeah.
was there ringside, and I remember watching you and thinking you got something about you. You know,
Mm.
it was a matchroom show, and I felt like you could really go far. From
Mhm.
that point to now, are you happy with your journey, or do you feel a little bit disappointed in some ways it's gone?
Um, it's been start and stop. It's been, it's not been the smoothest of roads, but it's a funny one because skill wise, I feel like I've come on leaps and bounds. Do you know what I mean? The sparring has been immensely helpful. Um, Also a lot of credit to my trainer, Brian Lawrence, and even other trainers I worked with in the past. They kind of all paved the way to get me going further. So in that way, it's been good. But in terms of my career, it's definitely been a start and stop. It didn't shoot off as quickly as I thought it would, but at the same time, I've kind of bubbled along quietly, I think. So it's not the worst start, but definitely not what I expected when I first turned over for sure.
Could you look back in, say, 5 years' time and think, actually, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise by going under the radar?
I agree, 110%. Um, I think it's given me the time to really hone my stuff. I think now, um, coming back into, I don't know, funny enough, from the beginning of this year, I think a lot of people that I've been sparring with, they'll tell you how much more comfortable I just became. And I think it's just been all that time and everything combined. Do you know what I mean? So I'm coming back now, even with this week's fight coming. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going there, putting on the show. And I think a lot of people will be quite surprised at how I'm going to be boxing going forward. And it's just the culmination of everything. Do you know what I mean? If it didn't follow, if the journey didn't go the way it gone, I might not have developed the way I had. Do you know what I mean? Things would have been missing along the way, either because I got rushed too quick or certain fights, like even the away corner fights, they were all developing fights at the same time. Do you know what I mean? No fight happened that wasn't beneficial to my growth, if you get what I'm saying. So long term, I think it was all good. It was all good, but no, definitely, I can see what you mean. It was not what I expected. No, no.
But
Uh,
we mentioned a domestic scene. I'm going to go through the three titles. So, Southern
mm,
Area champion, I believe
mm,
he's still a champion, is Johnny Fisher. Last
yeah,
time we spoke, you'd signed to fight him, and the fight
mm,
never materialised. He's now in
frustrating.
Alan Babbage.
Yeah.
Uh, Firstly, on that fight, what do you think of that?
I think it's a good fight. I would have loved to have been involved with either the winner or the loser, but in this honesty, I thought the fight makes sense in terms of where they both are. I think Johnny should win it, I think, but I feel like it's dealing with the man when he comes at you. We all know what Babbage is going to do. He's not going to rewrite the script. Do you know what I mean? It's just truth of the matter. But it's like at the same time, that approach to boxing kind of leaves him open, leaves him there for the shots. And I think all Johnny has to do is just be a little cuter than he's usually been. And I think he'll get the job done. Is he capable of it? I think maybe, maybe. But if I had to like favor him, I'll be like 60-40, I think, in that matchup.
Do you think with Babic, obviously, he sort of came to prominence on the Matchroom shows, and like you say, he's very much a come forward, knock your head off kind of fighter. He loves a
Facts.
shootout.
He
But
loves to up facts.
when he stepped up to the world level, he got stopped in a round with Lucas Rosansky at
Mm.
Bridgeweight. Does that sort of show the vulnerabilities in Babic?
100%. I think what you can't doubt him for is that he has a lot of heart and he's always coming in good fighting condition. And I think he's been able to use the combination of both to kind of overwhelm a lot of opponents. Obviously, like you said, as soon as he stepped up, he got stopped. And I think that what will also show, I think, is the years of hard sparring. Because I know he's quite proud of it, that he prepares almost to the way James Toney used to do, just loads of sparring. But I think, the years of preparing that way would have taken its toll. And I suspect he might be more chinny than he would like to be, and that's not a fault on him, but that's the way he prepares. And that's just the cost of it. And I think Fisher will be able to take good advantage of that, I suspect. I can see Johnny taking advantage of that, and little shots that he lands will have a much bigger effect on Babic, I think.
We're on to the English title, Solomon Dakers, and he's facing David Adelaide very soon. A good.
It's interesting. That's an interesting fight. Sorry, go on, my bad, go on.
What, no, go on. What do you think of that fight?
Honestly, it's interesting because I looked at both of them again as potential opponents. I think Solomon's credit is his conditioning. I've never seen him in a 10-round fight or whatever, or 8 rounds that he's had, ever be out of condition. He maintains a reasonably good work rate and seems to be quite physically durable. Definitely not the slickest in the book. I'm sorry, I don't give a damn, but if he hears it, it's the truth. You're not the slickest in the book. You're not the most skillful heavyweight I've ever seen. And I don't think anyone can give too much of a stock in his Commonwealth or something, amateur pedigree, something like that. Nah, based on what I'm seeing, I'm not really seeing it. You know what I mean? You look like a run-of-the-mill guy. But I think in this matchup, his conditioning and his physicality might actually favor him here. Because I think even though Adelaide is the better boxer, I think. I think I sparred Solomon briefly, only 2 rounds years ago. But I've sparred Adelaide a few times. And I think his work rate is not the highest, but he's definitely the better boxer and might be the better puncher, not sure. But I think in that matchup, if the going gets tough, I'll maybe slightly favor Solomon, I think. Do you know what I mean? Just because I think has the capacity to weather more torrid waters. And I think to overcome Solomon, Adelaide may have to display a level of conditioning that he hasn't had to thus far. Do you know what I mean? All those wins have been either early round blowouts or one shootouts, rather than having to essentially sustain pressure for a sustained number of rounds. He's never really been in that position. And I think that's what it will take to beat Solomon. You have to be physically capable of sustaining pressure, kind of wearing him down over the rounds, and then you may get the stoppage mid to late rounds. I don't know if Adelaide can physically do that. Skill-wise, sure. Physically, I don't know. And I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Interesting. And then the British title, held by Fabio Wardley. Fraser Clark seems to be the rematch. Is being talked about a lot. I think it has to happen next.
I see that.
Do you think that should happen next? Is that the next natural fight?
It's a funny one because I think the rematch, funnily enough, Fraser more than it does Fabio in terms of their careers. In terms of the business of boxing, I think Fabio has the potential to win it more than Fraser, because I think, no offense to Fraser, but I feel like that was the fittest Fraser we've ever seen, right? Most physically prepared Fraser we'd ever seen. thus far as a pro. And he went life and death with Fabio. And furthermore, at the end of a fight, it looked like he was going to collapse. This man looked like he needed an oxygen mask, for God's sake. And I think like that reality means he's at or potentially near his ceiling. I don't think that's the case for Fabio. Don't get me wrong, I was looking at the fight in the first few rounds, and I feel like in serious heavyweight fights, I was thinking you cannot be getting hit with that many jabs in the first few rounds. You're going to be out of here very shortly. But obviously, Fabio's toughness came through. He kept the pressure on. And funny enough, Fraser's work rate dropped. From round 3 to round 6, I noticed Fraser's work rate dropped quite a bit. And the fight flipped on its head all of a sudden. And I think that shows if Fabio brushes up his boxing a little more, he has a chance of actually producing a better performance. All the pressure, both physically and in terms of, the promotion and the expectations, will actually be on Fraser. Fraser's the one that has to produce a better performance. He's the one that has more to lose if he loses now. But Fabio, quite frankly, is overachieved. White qualifier where he started from, and the career he's having. He's a free agent similar to myself at the minute, but he's going to buy a different route. But ultimately, he was in a fight that he wasn't expected to win. Drew, but in a sense, it was a draw that was a win for him, if you get what I mean, because of his performance. And I think that gives Fabio a higher ceiling than it does Fraser. So I looked at it and I just thought to myself, if I had to fight either one of them, I think Fabio's the harder fight, quite honestly. I think Fraser's the cuter one, more skillful, and it'll be more of a boxing match. I think Fabio's physically the harder fight. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's credit to say to the man and the work he's put in. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to fight either of them though, I think. But I got to get through my stage and show myself that, yeah, I'm belonging with these guys. You know what I mean? But I'd love to fight either of them. I didn't see nothing there to give me sleepless nights. So, yeah, they're good. It's good for it to happen.
You mentioned about Solomon Dakis and Fabio Wardley there, their toughness, getting them through fights and winning them fights. How important is that? Because you can have all the ability in the world, but if you've got zero toughness, is it fair to say you might not make it in the boxing world?
100%, because I think as much as skill matters, and it definitely matters, I mean, we all try to improve on it. But I think to a certain extent, you need to be able to get through a torrid time. Yeah, and it's not something that a coach can give you or whatever, but especially if you're fighting live opponents and hard fights, there will always be an element of resistance that you kind of have to overcome. Unless the skill disparity is so high that it never comes into question, usually there will be a moment of almost like a rough patch, I guess you can say. And if you don't have that toughness to overcome it, I think you're limited already. You can never get past a certain level. No matter how skillful you are, even if you're like, I don't know, top of the world level of skill or whatever, once you meet that level of resistance, that will we've seen it over the years already. Do you know what I mean? Great, many fighters with a lot of hype around them. That's what I'm saying. This talks again about being progressed too quick. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of fighters, they turn pro, great hype, maybe wasn't a former Olympian and everyone knows about him, and everyone's expecting big things. Do you know what I mean? I guess the most famous example of this was Audley Harrison. And maybe for all sorts of reasons, never got the type of physical journey that he needed to, to toughen him up a bit. And once those tests came, he wasn't ready. Do you know what I mean? All those skills didn't make a difference when someone was just rough and tough in front of him and ready to keep going. And that was enough to make him falter, So, yeah, I think the way I approach those type of situations, I think if you have that kind of fight in front of you, you also take into account their toughness in your preparation. You kind of go in there expecting that, yeah, you know what? This is not going to be an easy fight, and I'm training for it not to be an easy fight. If it's an easy fight, it's almost like a surprise because I prepared for me to have to go through hell to get this win. I was mentally and physically prepared for that reality. Do you know what I mean? I think that's very key.
Absolutely. We've mentioned a few times your sparring experiences. I'm going to talk about your sparring a couple of guys who are facing each other very soon. Let's start with Joyce. You mentioned him already. Firstly, what the spars like with Joyce?
Funny enough, he was actually my first spar back after the injury. We sparred for quite a few weeks. I was quite happy with my performance, funnily enough. But like I said, you have that time out the game and you kind of wonder how you're going to come back in. But I came back in quite comfortable, which surprised me. I think I was sparring him around the time he was getting ready for Cash Ali, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it was really good sparring. I have no complaints about it. I sparred both him and Dubois around the same period.
And in terms of Joyce, what would you say he does best? We talk about that toughness and that strength. Joyce seems
Mm.
to have that toughness.
Yeah, yes, I think his best attribute is his footwork. I know it sounds funny because I guess it's hard to see footwork on TV screen, but maybe it's the years with Abel Sanchez, I'm not sure, but he's very good at cutting off the ring generalship, awareness of where he is in the ring with his feet. Definitely his hands are not the quickest. His head movement, we all know he ain't the greatest. And sparring is the same. I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise. But his footwork means that he's able to sustain pressure and essentially force you to be comfortable with him in your face all the time. Now, I can adjust to it, but I know definitely it's one of his attributes that he utilizes in his fights. So yeah, his footwork, I would say that's probably his best attribute.
Very interesting. Because like you say, there's not a lot of head movement. A lot of people say he's very stiff, very robotic, very slow in the.
True, true, true. So true,
But for
so
me,
true.
if you say to me his footwork, automatically
Mm.
I go, he must be quick, must be moving around.
Yeah, no, that's the funny part. He isn't. You know what? If I had to compare his footwork, I would compare it to a Golovkin. That's why I said Abel Sanchez. I don't know if it was his influence because I'd compare it to a Golovkin. Golovkin's footwork is economical, extremely economical, efficient as well, but it's effective. He's not a twinkle toes. He's no Ali, do you know what I mean? Or a Robinson, but you never see someone able to evade Golovkin for long. And he always somehow finds a way to get them into corners and trap them in places to get his punches off. And I would say Joyce is very similar in that mode. Because you're right, he definitely ain't the fastest guy. But I've yet to see a fight where he doesn't manage to get him in a corner. Done it to Parker, and look what Parker's gone on and done. Do you know what I mean? Parker's shown a level of slickness since that fight. But when he fought Joyce, he couldn't get out of the corners. And that's his overwhelmingly strong attribute, his footwork and how he cuts off the ring and puts you in certain places. And even when you force him to go backwards, he can regain that space quickly. It's his footwork, I think, that's his best attribute. But you're for sure, you're not wrong. Listen, slow, robotic, all of that. It's definitely him. Definitely him.
Would you say that's down to his boxing IQ as well? Because although he's not the quickest,
Good
he's
point.
obviously
Good
using the
point.
footwork at the right time and the right, the methods, etc. He's obviously in the right place at the right time whenever he's putting his feet where he's putting them for that reason.
Good point. Yeah, I agree. I can definitely see that. Um, Again, he's another one that's come with former Olympian and stuff like that. So I think I would say I've sparred quite a few guys now, and even some guys that were great, good fighters like Hergovic. I sparred him as well, and I can now say, having been around the ring with quite a few fighters of that caliber, that you being an Olympian is not an automatic green tick. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because you're an Olympian doesn't automatically mean you're some great fighter. I know I've sparred enough of them now to know that, but in people like Joyce's case, they were able to utilize that experience to have a better understanding of themselves. And I think as you get better as a fighter, like even with myself, I noticed it over the years, you don't necessarily become some different person. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you wake up one day and all of a sudden you're Sugar Ray Leonard. It's not really that. As the years go on and as you get better, you understand yourself better. You start to understand, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. This is how I'm going to put it together to get what I want in the ring, to get these type of outcomes. It's almost like a better understanding of self rather than some magical transformation that happens. And I think with Joyce's case, all that experience has culminated in truly understanding, look, I can't do this, this, and this, but I have this. And if I use this well, I can kind of negate the other stuff to an extent. And that's kind of what he's honed in on. And I think that's what that experience has come into play.
Talking about the other side of the coin, and that is Derek Chisora.
Mm,
Chisora. Also, what's he like to spar? He seems to be somebody who's pretty relentless, someone who's tough, who's got a lot of heart, won't give up.
mm.
What's he like in the gym?
In the gym, honestly, it's pretty much the same as he is in fighting. Like, there's not much different. Both him and Joyce shared that in the same respect. They both spar how they fight. With Chisora, I've known Chisora probably the longest out of all the pros I've sparred because he was my first sparrer as a professional turning over, and he was also the sparrer I was sparring most consistently up until he had the Fury fight. That was the last time we sparred. And that was simply because I think it got to a level where it was becoming too one-sided on my side for him. Do you know what I mean? And I think all sorts of factors, me getting better, him getting older, slowing down, etc. And it's all combined together, if you get what I mean. And it now became more one-sided. We haven't sparred since. But definitely he's an extremely relentless guy. And I think, honestly, I actually liked him, man. Which is weird because we had wars. Don Charles, I'm sure, will tell you, we had crazy scraps in the gym. But I liked him, man, funnily enough. And I think, if I'm honest, I wouldn't actually want to see him fight this fight. If I'm honest. If I'm really honest. Because our last spar, I realized he was old. And I don't mean age. I mean in the ring. If there's a way to explain, but when I first turned pro, right, I had really good moments with him, which is one of the reasons I worked with Charlie back then. Like, I had really good sparring. But Chisora, even when you had good moments with him, almost in the ring was like a non-stop forward motion of aggression. If you get what I mean? Even if you had momentary pauses where you maybe outboxed him or maneuvered him or whatever, he will come back again later, right? Towards the end of the 3 years, I guess, of the sparring we did, by the time we sparred around the Fury fight, it's almost like you could beat the aggression out of him. You know what I mean? And I definitely think that obviously age, ring wear and tear and all the rest of it had a part to play. And I was already thinking to myself when he was getting ready for the Fury fight that he was kind of done. Before the fight, I was thinking that. I thought, nah, he was kind of done here. But like based on a spar already, you know what I mean? We stopped sparring because it didn't make sense anymore anyway, you know? But I just thought to myself that he's kind of finished as a fighter. But I understood that the pay for that fight was so much, it was difficult to turn down. You know what I mean? I think it was like several million or something, and he couldn't turn it down at that point. I said, fine. But for him to now continue on with Joyce, I personally didn't understand why. He didn't strike me as a spendthrift, someone who's running through his money like he has no sense. To my knowledge, I might be wrong, but I don't think he's whoring or drinking it up either. So why take this Joyce fight? It didn't make sense to me. And I think it's more likely to take more unnecessary punishment, and the paycheck cannot be high enough to warrant it, in my opinion. You know, but listen, hey, the man's a man of his own, and whatever I think or anyone else thinks, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's proven it, so, you know. But no, I like him as a person for sure.
Just finally, Franco, how does that fight go? Does Joyce inevitably just wear him down
Yep,
and get a stoppage?
100%. 100%. Like, it's not even a doubt in my mind. Oh, sorry.
Right.
No, it's not even a doubt in my mind. That's going to be a stoppage. Straight up. Like I said, I know where he was 3 years ago. Look, sorry, not 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Look, yeah, I don't care what no one says. You can't wind back Father Time. It's like this Mike Tyson and flipping Jake Paul fight. Same kind of crap. You cannot turn back Father Time. I don't care what training you do. I don't give a damn who you hire. You can't change it. Once you had enough things happen, that's it. That's where you're at. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of have to accept that, okay, maybe my time in the sun is done. And you crack on with other things. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I think it's similar to the whole Jake Paul Tyson thing that I don't give a damn how good Tyson was in his day. All the knockouts he had, all the Instagram highlight reels. Towards the end, he was getting battered. The Tyson in his 30s, towards the end, was getting battered. Like, I'm a fan of boxing history. I know my boxing very well. Do you know what I mean? From 1940s onwards, I'm just quite curious in boxing in that way. And I know how Tyson's career went. All the highlight reels are based from like a 3-4 year gap, 5 year gap. You know what I mean? And when he started wearing down and certain things in his life happened, 30s and onwards, he was a mess. And that was 20 years ago.
I was going to say, the man who has lost and been stopped 24 years ago to Kevin
You know what I
McBride.
mean? Like, what are we talking about here? Thank you. What are we talking about? What, you think the man found some magic potion somewhere? Or what, you saw a bloody a couple 30-second clips that be mashed together of him finding 5-second bursts of work. And you think all of a sudden the Tyson of what, 1987 has come back. Like, what are we talking about, man? The man is down there 60. He's probably waking up with back problems and knee problems every day. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I just, like, Jake Paul's about to fight a man that is not too many years gone from standing up in a wheelchair. We literally saw them having so many back problems. He was getting wheeled around in the airport in a wheelchair. He's an old man, an old former athlete. So, no, I'm not expecting either him or Chisora or anyone of that kind of situation to all of a sudden find some new lease on life and change things up. You're old, and you're gonna go in there and realize you're old, and that's the end of that. You
Look,
know.
not only that, that you mentioned about the wheelchair. He was in a wheelchair at the airport because of an ulcer. Like it's not like he can't walk. He can, he's had an ulcer and he's in a wheelchair. And it's postponed a fight. It's craziness, but that's a whole nother story.
It's a mess. Listen, man. Like I said, I wish all these guys the best. I'm a fan of Tyson, and like I said, I actually personally like Chisora. So I'm also rooting for him. But I know with boxing, it's like there's like the ultimate like bell or truth almost. I think what did this guy call it? The American guy, Teddy Atlas. He called it like the chamber of truth. The man went far wrong. Yeah. Don't matter how much anyone else can say X, Y, or Z or whatever. Once you're in that ring, the truth of life will come out. And I think what will come out both in Chisora's case and Tyson's case is these are old guys, simple. Old guys who've had a tough career and been in the game a while. And, you're going to meet a situation that your experience can't overcome. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. Franco, we'll swing back round to yourself. Best of
Mm.
luck for fight night. Looking forward to seeing you back out in action again. And
Can't
hopefully
wait, man.
a bit of activity and some momentum as well.
Listen, man, oh my God, I feel like a guy that's bloody had a train that stopped. Like when you're waiting at a train station and you wait for the train, they say, train's delayed. It's coming in. Yeah, that's what I feel like. I'm the delayed train. I'm finally getting some motion going, man. So, yeah, I can't wait. You know what I mean? I can't wait next week. And hopefully it'll be the start of definitely, more fights coming. I want to at least fight, God willing, at least 3 more times this year and kind of get myself back in the driving seat.
Absolutely. I mean, I rate you very highly, so I can't wait for the rest of the world to see what you can do, Franco.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for your time.
No problem.